Stanley Meyer, the man who claimed cars could run on water. Meet Stanley Meyer, American inventor. Big dreams, big claims. In the 1990s, he said he created a car that ran on water. Literally, just water. How? According to Meyer, his special water fuel cell could split water into hydrogen and oxygen using barely any energy. Then the car would run on hydrogen. Boom! Cross-country trip on 22 gallons of H2O. No gas, no emissions, no oil lobby. He even showed off a working dune buggy. Journalists were impressed. Investors were interested. Scientists were not. Most said his invention violated basic laws of physics. Minor detail. But Meyer didn't back down. He got patents. He gave interviews. He said his tech would make oil companies obsolete. Then one day in 1998, after a meeting with investors at a diner, Meyer ran outside holding his throat and collapsed. His last words? "They poisoned me." Official cause of death? Aneurysm. Case closed. Or not. To this day, some think he was taken out because his invention was too disruptive. Others think he was a con artist with a good pitch. Royal Rife, the man who tried to zap cancer with frequencies. Now let's talk about Royal Rife. Microscope guy, cancer cure guy, got absolutely wrecked by the system guy. Back in the 1930s, Rife built a microscope that could allegedly see live viruses, which at the time was a big deal. But then he said, what if I also invented a machine that blasts cancer cells to death using frequencies? He called it the Rife machine. It used radio waves to vibrate cancer cells until they exploded, like an opera singer shattering a wine glass, except your tumor is the glass. He even claimed he cured patients. Terminal cancer? Zapped. No chemo, no surgery, just frequencies. But instead of winning awards, he got visits from the FDA, from the AMA, from people who didn't like what he was doing. His lab was raided, his equipment destroyed, his work discredited. Some of his supporters ended up in jail. And Rife quietly erased from medical history. Today, some call him a visionary. Others say he was a quack. But either way, his story became Exhibit A in the case of what happens when you mess with big medicine. Wilhelm Reich, the guy who thought you could cure cancer with organ boxes. This is Wilhelm Reich, Austrian psychoanalyst, student of Freud, believed in something called organ energy, a kind of cosmic life force that flows through everything. Yeah, think of it like the Force from Star Wars, but with more paperwork. Reich said emotional repression blocked this energy, and that's what made people sick. So he built organ accumulators, metal-lined boxes people sat in to soak up all that juicy orgone. Some patients claimed it helped. The FDA said, no it doesn't. Then the government came knocking, hard. They called his work pseudoscience, banned his devices, and ordered him to stop. Reich refused, so they burned his research. No joke. They actually destroyed his books and equipment, like Fahrenheit 451 levels of censorship. He was arrested for contempt of court, tossed in prison, and died there in 1957. His supporters say he was a visionary who got crushed for challenging big science. His critics say he built a cosmic sauna and called it medicine. Either way, Reich's name is now synonymous with scientific suppression. Eugene Malov, the cold fusion guy who said they're hiding free energy. Now meet Eugene Malov, super smart, MIT engineer. Big believer in cold fusion, the idea that you could get clean, cheap nuclear energy without a nuclear reactor. No meltdowns, no radiation, no oil. Just good vibes and science. In 1989, two chemists claimed they'd achieved cold fusion at room temperature. Malov was pumped. Finally, an energy breakthrough. But then, mainstream science freaked out. Labs said they couldn't replicate the results, and the whole thing got labeled junk. Malov wasn't buying it. He said the energy industry had every reason to bury cold fusion. He even quit his job at MIT, claiming they suppressed evidence. Then he launched a magazine called Infinite Energy to promote technologies they didn't want you to know about. Cold fusion? Real? Cover-up? Definitely. Enemies? Oh yeah. Then in 2004, Malov was found dead. Blunt force trauma. Police called it a robbery. His supporters called it a hit. Another dead inventor who just wanted to unplug the world from fossil fuels. Today, cold fusion, or LENR, still exists in the shadows, just like Malov predicted. Nikola Tesla, the man who tried to give the world free power and got ghosted. Say hello to Nikola Tesla, the man, the myth, the lightning-obsessed loner. He gave us AC power, radio waves, and the Tesla coil. But what he really wanted? Wireless energy, for free, for everyone. His big plan was the Wardenclyffe Tower, a massive structure that could supposedly beam electricity across the planet. No wires, no bills. Just plug your toaster into the atmosphere. Sounds awesome, right? Not if you're an oil baron or an electric company. Once his financier JP Morgan realized there was no money to be made, the funding vanished. The project collapsed. The tower was demolished, and Tesla, left with pigeons, unpaid hotel bills, and dreams of what could have been. He died alone in 1943, broke and mostly forgotten. Today, Tesla's name is on cars and space rockets, but during his life, he was laughed at, sabotaged, and ignored. Did he really crack the secret to free energy? Or just dream a little too hard? Dr. Stanislaw Brzezinski, the cancer doctor the FDA couldn't get rid of. This is Dr. Stanislaw Brzezinski, trained biochemist, licensed physician, and apparently, public enemy number one. If you ask the FDA, back in the 1970s, Brzezinski came up with anti-neoplastin therapy, a cancer treatment that targeted only cancer cells, supposedly sparing patients from the soul-crushing side effects of chemo. His patients patients? Some of them lived, even with brain tumors. But here's the twist. Brzezinski wasn't part of Big Pharma. He ran an independent clinic in Texas, and suddenly the medical establishment had questions like, where are your double-blind clinical trials? Why isn't this peer-reviewed? And most importantly, why aren't you charging $100,000 a dose like the rest of us? The FDA launched multiple lawsuits, multiple investigations, even raids, but the guy somehow dodged every bullet. No fraud conviction, no malpractice ruling. Just decades of legal trench warfare. Supporters say he was saving lives and got targeted for it. Critics say he was playing doctor without enough data. Either way, he's still treating patients, still fighting the system, and still raising one very awkward question. Who actually controls medical innovation? Tom Ogle, the kid who invented a 100 mpg car and then mysteriously died. Meet Tom Ogle, 24 years old, wore cowboy shirts, didn't like wasting fuel. In 1977, he unveiled something incredible, a vapor fuel system that let a regular car get over 100 miles per gallon. No electric motors, no nuclear reactor in the trunk, just a modified Ford Galaxy and a whole lot of questions. People watched his demo, mechanics confirmed it worked, investors lined up, and somewhere oil executives probably started sweating. But then, the Ogle curse kicked in, break-ins at his shop, patent issues, deals that went nowhere, and finally, in 1981, he was found dead. Official cause? Drug overdose. Which is weird because his friends said he didn't even drink. His invention? Gone. Never mass-produced, never commercialized. Just poof, disappeared. Some say it was buried by Big Oil. Others think it died with him due to poor documentation. But one thing's clear. Tom Ogle built a fuel-efficient system 40 years ahead of its time. And somehow, that got him erased. John Canzias, the radio guy who tried to cook cancer. In a good way, John Canzias wasn't a doctor, or a physicist, or an engineer. He was a retired radio tech who got leukemia and decided, yeah, I'll just invent a cancer cure myself. And somehow, he did. Using radio frequency waves and metal nanoparticles, Canzias created a system that targeted and heated cancer cells until they basically fried, without hurting the surrounding tissue. In early animal trials, it worked. And on the side, he accidentally discovered how to ignite salt water using his machine. Because why not invent cancer treatment and clean energy at the same time? He got national media attention, was featured on 60 Minutes. Scientists said it had promise, but still, no FDA approval, no major funding. And in 2009, he died before human trials could even start. After that, his work faded into silence. The machine that could have changed oncology, and maybe the energy game too, went back to collecting dust. So yeah, a cancer-zapping radio device and saltwater fire starter built by a guy in sandals, ignored to death. Boyd Bushman, the Lockheed Martin engineer who talked about aliens. A lot. Boyd Bushman was not your average tinfoil hat guy. He was a senior scientist at Lockheed Martin, worked on classified aerospace projects, had the badge, the resume, and allegedly the aliens. Just before he died in 2014, Bushman recorded a tell-all video where he casually dropped the bomb. The US government has been reverse engineering alien spacecraft at Area 51. No big deal. Also, aliens from a planet called Quintumnia have been hanging out with American scientists for years. Oh, and he had pictures. Cue the dramatic music. He also described anti-gravity technology, like real-life flying saucers that don't need fuel. No emissions, no gas stations, just physics-bending UFO joyrides. He said these breakthroughs exist, but we're not allowed to have them. Why? Because apparently, national security means keeping flying anti-gravity machines a secret. But here's the catch. Some of those alien photos turned out to be Walmart action figures. Seriously. Still, conspiracy fans loved him. Whistleblower? Hero? Grandpa who watched too much X-Files? You decide. Paul Pantone, inventor of the engine that ran on almost anything, and then got institutionalized. Now say hello to Paul Pantone. Backyard inventor, energy rebel, creator of the GEET fuel system, a bizarre engine mod that supposedly let your car run on gasoline and water, or even waste oil, paint thinner, and yes, pickle juice. GEET, short for Global Environmental Energy Technology, was basically a Frankenstein engine. It used heat, vapor pressure, and magnets to turn almost anything into fuel. People who saw it run said it worked. The emissions, almost zero. The fuel efficiency, off the charts. The oil industry, probably sweating. But the scientific community, not impressed. Where's the peer review? Where's the replication? Why does this thing look like it was built in a garage using plumbing parts? Then came the weird part. Pantone got arrested over a sketchy business deal, and instead of jail, he ended up in a mental institution for years. Supporters screamed suppression. Detractors said, or maybe the guy just needed help. After his release, he kept promoting GEET, offering plans online and claiming anyone could build one. He passed away in 2015, unrecognized, underfunded, and still mocked by the mainstream. But GEET didn't die with him. A small army of hobbyists still build and tweak the system, trying to prove once and for all, was Paul Pantone a madman or a mechanical genius silenced by the system?